Welcome to Enter the Mind podcast, the most real talk, no nonsense podcast on the empowering of the mind. Today, Kyra and I will be talking about success, money, and good-heartedness. What can we learn from successful people? Is it all about acquiring wealth, or is there a good-heartedness that's necessary to become a great, successful person? Before we get to that, Kyra, how are you doing this week?
Doing great. Really, really great. I joined this 10K in 10 days challenge, and it was literally like the experience of going so absolutely hard, and like the ideas and the roadblocks that just clear away when you dedicate yourself and you make something non-negotiable. I love the magic of that. So it was a really fun time. And how are things in your world this week?
10K with like running, jogging, right?
No, money.
No. Go figure. Context is important, apparently. I was about to be like, oh, yeah, you get your fitness, girl.
That's a lot.
But
Wow,
no.
10,000 miles in 10 days.
10,000, well, 10K meaning like 10 kilometers,
Oh,
which would be like 6 miles. So that's doable. It's doable.
very
But
doable. You're so funny.
10K money. Okay, got it. Well, that's perfect. That's perfect for today's topic, right?
I love it.
And I'm doing fine. By the way, it's good. New levels of mental clarity, and it feels better than ever. So yeah, this topic of money, right? So successful people. Well, this was an organic thought that you had recently. So why don't you tell us sort of your sequence or train of thought as you thought through this matter recently?
Recently, I have just been so honest about my experience in the business world. And I honestly feel like my dreams were so shattered when I entered the business world because I saw all of these people who were not themselves. Um, and they appeared to be so successful. And then, like, you actually get to know the person. It's like, oh, you're not actually successful. You're just rich, And it's like, I don't want to hang out with the richest people in the world if those richest people have no depth, have no substance. They don't know who they are. They've lost their purpose and the money. And I feel like there's a lot of people like that these days. And so, which is why it ruined my experience in business in the beginning. So now, thinking about, success and what can we learn from these successful people, I think that it's important that we take a look at the good and bad things that we can learn from specific successful people. But I think that to close this up, if you're in a room, you should not go for the richest person in the room. You should go for the richest and the person who has the most character in the room, the person who is the most here, go for that person, because that person's going to take you high. The person who's just successful and just rich is going to take you to money. That's all they're going to take you to.
Right. It's like a distinction between financially wealthy and spiritually wealthy, from my perspective.
Both.
It's one way to look at it. But I can identify with what you said. Spiritual wealth is really interesting to me to encounter. I remember encountering this one dude in the airport, and I was walking. We just got off the plane. We were walking to the baggage claim, and there was just something very carefree about him, and almost like a surfer vibe of like, like, yeah, what's up, dude? Like, it's all good. I don't worry about nothing. I'm chill, right? And I just really thought this guy's vibe was awesome. He wasn't easily affected by his environment. He was calm. He was relaxed. He didn't worry about things he didn't have to worry about. And I get really into things like that. And I think it's totally independent of your the number in your bank account. It's I mean, you could have both, right? You could have a person that's very spiritually evolved, but then also monetarily wealthy. I mean, it's possible, right? But you can also have each of the either ors. You can have lots of money and be spiritually bankrupt, or you could be a spiritual master and have no money and no resources.
Yeah, yeah, agreed. I felt like in the beginning, what I was getting at is I feel like, yeah, having that success in finances, what can we learn from people like that? What can we learn from people who have, success, complete success in the human mind? What can we learn from people that have the utmost success in energetic alignment? It's like, what can we learn from these people who are so successful in different areas? And then we can put that all together and, create just like a big bowl of like awesome soup.
So what would that look like?
What do you mean? It would look like the success in the finances, and it would look like the success. So you would take all those successes, you put it in a bowl, and then you eat it.
Yeah. What's interesting to me is that there's a great quote by, who was it? Brian Tracy, I want to say. Don't hold me to that, but it might have been Brian Tracy. It's not about becoming a millionaire that's important. It's about the person you must become in order to become a millionaire. And that quote really stuck with me, because there's two ways you can become wealthy. One, you could inherit, get lucky, win the lotto, whatever, and your character is going to be the same because you didn't have to change your character to win the lotto. But to build your own business, let's take Grant Cardone for instance. He's self-made, right? He grew up single family household at some point, was addicted to drugs, started working in sales at a car dealership. Now he's worth billions. Why? Because he practiced every morning the sales scripts and everything. He mastered that, started teaching sales on the road, started converting that into like larger scale things, started investing in real estate, learned real estate. And in order to build so much on yourself and get through the setbacks, I'm sure that he encountered tons of setbacks on that road. I think it triggers a little evolution in yourself, in your character along the way.
Well, what I find is interesting about the statement that it's not about becoming a millionaire, it's about the person that you become. And I get that, right? Totally get that, I do. And then the other day, I saw this girl post a video, and she said, I used to think that manifestation was about raising your self-worth. And here's why I think that that's wrong, kind of now, right?
But I think the point you're making is to not idolize the wealthy, right? To not chase after them, put them on a pedestal, to not view them as perfect and the goal to strive for.
Yes, yes, but I also wanted to talk about the difference between successful and going through that journey that you were talking about, like those inevitable, kind of like that inevitable journey that you have to go on to become this person. But I feel like you got to be careful. You got to learn to discern what that version, what the person that you're becoming is to be that millionaire. Like, you've got to be aware of that.
Okay.
Because like if you're learning from somebody like Bill Gates and you become exactly like him and you you don't realize what you're doing because you never questioned it. You were like, oh, he's rich, I want to be exactly like him. And I get that because I've been there before too. I was like, I don't give a fuck, he's rich as shit. I'm going to follow what somebody did that's rich. But now thinking about it, it's like, okay, well, let's be, we're valuable. We're valuable people. And to be throwing ourselves around like for some money, it's like, yo, relax. Like we're fine.
Yeah. What I think is cool is it sounds like this was a transformation of some sort of scale for you. Maybe not massive, but it's a transformation for you where your compass was pointing in a certain direction, and then you got closer to it and you saw it for what it is, and you decided, I need to adjust and I need to aim for something else. And to me, that's the process of personal growth.
But do you think Bill Gates ever did that? Is what
Probably.
I'm saying.
I don't know anything about
It's like,
Bill
even if
Gates,
he
except
did,
that he had a gigantic margin on his products because it takes 5 cents to make a CD, and then you call it Microsoft Windows, you sell it for $50. That's a massive margin. That's all I know about him.
well, first of all, I love, 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 love your analogy about the compass and getting closer to it and realizing that you have to kind of redo that. I love it, love it, love it. Um, and I think that that's a really beautiful part of life, is always being able to have that discernment and be like, oh, I'm getting closer. This looks a little bit off. Even though it looks amazing and it's very lucrative, it still looks a little bit off. I think we've got to tweak it a little bit. And I feel like maybe the more money that somebody gets, maybe the less they do that. Not everybody. I'm not trying to scare people out of money here. I want to be a billionaire too. But I'm saying, like, you got to be wary of the mindset that you have, because you really got to be able to check yourself. Like, even when you are a millionaire, check yourself. Say, check your motives. Check what you're trying to get success in. Check who you're learning from. Check what you're actually doing it for and what you're trying to feel. Question yourself. You're a human. It's easy to get lost. Question yourself like you question your clients, like the people that you love.
Right. But as you take action, because I see this is a great antidote to analysis paralysis, where, like, for instance, someone goes to school and you ask them, well, what do you want to study? What do you want to be when you grow up? And they're like, oh, I don't know what I want to study. I'm thinking biology. I'm thinking uh, maybe pre-law. I don't know. And these typically younger people, right, going to school or fresh out of high school or something, they approach it as if that they can sit in a room and think about it and come up with their ideal goal in life. And I don't know if it works like that, because there's value to walking down a certain road, seeing how the road is, and then changing roads because you don't like the road. There's nothing wrong with that. What I see something wrong with is when people say, well, I don't want to start walking down a road because I might not like it. It's like, okay, well, now what are you going to do? I'm going to talk to you next month, and you're going to have not done anything. You're going to not have acquired any life experience, and you're going to be in the same position you were a month prior. And that's the picture of non-personal growth, no growth.
It's so funny. Um, no, you're right, and I love that. I love that so much, and I think it really relates to the quote, "As I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I fear no evil," because I feel like to walk down that path that you don't really know and you're not sure if it's going to work out, it's scary because it's dark. It's unfamiliar. It's uncharted territory, as a lot of people say. I feel like uncharted territory kind of really resonates with me, and you're going, and all you got to do is, I feel like we build things. I think about this a lot lately, is the energy expenditure or the energy pendulum that we used to talk about often. You get this buildup in your mind of what you think the road is going to be like. But if you would just toss it out and like just go, then you would see that it's not as scary at all as what you were talking about in your mind. Like, it's literally nothing like you were imagining in your mind. It's beautiful, it's sweet, it's enjoyable. It's not hard, scary, dark. Like, you know, it's none of those things that you're thinking that it's going to be. So I feel like if you just allow yourself to dive in to those paths, like you're saying, Robert, like Robert is saying, you know, then I think that, yeah, that does have a lot of value in making sure that you're creating something in life that aligns with your inner being, your soul, your spirit.
Right. Yeah. Well, since you brought the term pendulum, I'll bring up the other term from that author and book, or Vadim Zealand. That's the reality transurfing vocabulary. Is sounded like you were describing excess potential,
Yeah.
where yeah, you don't want to go down a certain road because you think, oh, it's going to be too much trouble, or I'm not going to like it, blah blah blah. It's an inflation or an excess potential, because it's not really. I don't know. I just love the vocabulary that guy uses, because I feel like I can relate to that. I mean, it's an overthinking, right? Because you don't know what it's going to be like. It's kind of like you ask me, oh, would you like to play in the NBA, in professional basketball? And I tell you, oh no, because all those photographers and the travel, blah blah blah. It's like, I don't know. You would have to experience it to really know how you react to those stressors, right? But
Yeah.
people come up with it. It's a covert excuse, is what it is. Uh, and I think something that I watch out in my mind for is excuses, uh, excuses parading around as facts or rationalizations, wearing like a trench coat or something, or wearing a disguise, or right. And I'm like, oh, right here is a thought that sounds sophisticated. It makes my ego feel better because I sound smart. I'm like, oh no, see, I wouldn't do that because there's a problem with this and that and blah blah blah. I'm smart because I can see the problems. And then when you really examine it, you start to see, oh wait, actually I have no idea how that thing works, what it's like to experience it. I have no idea. I'm talking out of my butt here. But uh but you examine it, and then you see the truth of that thought. And the truth is that it's an excuse.
Mm-hmm. Mm. I was literally just talking about this on my story. I don't know if you saw my post about I'm all for suicide, but yeah,
I'm not even going to ask about it, but go on.
I'll touch base on it lightly. But it's just limiting beliefs are so fascinating to me, you know, because I dealt with suicidal thoughts my entire life, and you know, they've tried to convince me in so many different ways that I'm supposed to die. And it's kind of a heavy topic, but it's so interesting because if I can beat those, I can beat anything, you know. But here's what I found interesting about it is that there were 5 levels to the way that these limiting beliefs used to talk to me. First, they would start small, you know, they would see that I wouldn't believe it, so they would go deeper. I didn't believe that one, they would go harder. They would hit me where it hurts. And they will be convincing. Like, they will be so fucking convincing, you know? But if you can realize that limiting beliefs are just that, they're just a belief that you accidentally identified with. You don't need to identify with that belief. That belief is not real. If you are going towards a goal and there is a belief that says this, that, and the third, they're fake. They're just trying to convince you to stay where you are. they're trying to convince you. But yeah, so I thought that I love that topic. It's so interesting.
Yeah, limiting beliefs are fascinating. And as you were talking about that, it made me think of openness as the opposite of a limiting belief. Because a limiting belief is like, oh, I can't do this because blah, blah, blah. But uh,
Mm.
if you look at, I probably shouldn't bring up wealthy entrepreneurs again because we just kind of tried to dismantle the the perfect idealized image of the wealthy entrepreneur. But like Richard Branson has a great masterclass, on masterclass.com, and he tells a story of um, he couldn't he wanted to put video screens in the back of the seats on his airplanes, right? Because he owned the Virgin Airlines, and so he wanted the seats back in the day that they didn't have videos yet, right? So he wanted to install these screens. So he asked the banks. He said, "Can you give me, like, I forgot the number. Let's say $2 million to install these videos." And the banks were like, "Oh no, that's a horrible investment. Like, we're not going to give you $2 million." And he just practiced openness, and he was like, okay, well, what else could we do? What else? And then he talked to Boeing, and he was like, could you give me a new plane? And they're like, it's 10 million. And then he said, okay, could you, if I buy it now, will you throw in like videos in the backs of the seats? And they're like, oh yeah, we'll do that. So he goes back to the bank. He says, can you give me $10 million to buy a new plane? And the bank gives him the 10 million like right away, because it's a new plane, because they consider a plane a good investment, but they thought the videos were not a good investment. Anyway,
What
so now he's got a new plane. He's got $10 million in the bank from this new loan. He's got the planes. He's got the video screens, right? Now, why am I telling a story, right? Openness, limiting beliefs, and openness. Now, what would have been a limiting belief? Oh, these banks are stupid. They have no sense of how to run a business. Why wouldn't they give me the money that I need to buy my video screens? That's limiting beliefs. It's low vibration. It's
Mm-hmm.
constricting. It's storytelling. It's inflation. It's excess potential. But no, what's the path forward? The path forward is like, okay, that road, it ends right here. What other road can I walk down? Instead of just
Mm-hmm.
standing there and pouting, what other road can I start walking down? Because
Mm-hmm.
when you walk down a road, then you acquire the experience, you do something, you get feedback from the world, from reality, and now you're actually living instead of just thinking about living. It's a whole different approach.
Mm-hmm. I love that so fucking much. Now you're living instead of thinking about living. And I think that that is just great. Also, on top of that, I feel like there comes a point in every successful person's life where I feel like they should sit down and just be open to something else. Like, because I feel like that's very healthy for somebody. But what I did want to talk about is I wanted to gather up all of the goodness from this episode so far in success, because we've talked about some really good stuff. You've been dropping bombs today, so I think that we should gather those up and recall them.
Yeah. Yeah. Do you want to start?
I remember it was the limiting beliefs, the excess potential, like, so it's never as scary. And then we have limiting beliefs and how the limiting beliefs are very convincing, and they will get more convincing. You got to pass that test when you're going to greatness. You got to pass the test of how many limiting beliefs can you actually swat out of your fucking life. How clear can you actually get? And then what was else? We have the limiting beliefs, the excess potential, questioning one's motives. What else?
I think just uninflated action taking. Just taking action with no expectation and just seeing what happens and then responding to it.
Ah, that's what I wanted to talk about, the compass. I would definitely
Oh
wanted to
yeah,
do.
that too. Do you
Yeah.
do you want to wrap up with that thought?
Yeah, that sounds great. So the compass and the path, pretty much try out the path. Um, and then I definitely felt that pull to live um, instead of thinking about living. So I think that those were all really good. Um, and yeah, I guess to end off today's episode, of course, you guys, thanks so much for being here. We love being here with you guys. I don't think that Robert and I would still be here today if we didn't absolutely love this podcast and coming on here and talking about the human mind and, just ways that we can help ourselves and help everybody else live a happier life, a more clear life, more truthful life. So yeah, we've got, the steps to success, limiting beliefs, excess potential, questioning one's motives, no expectation action. You got the compass and the path. You got to try out the path and you got to live instead of thinking about living. And I think that those are all wonderful.
Totally. And let me plug two things. First, it's the end of the month, and I do a monthly newsletter. So if you'd like to receive those, they contain self-help tips, summaries of what I learned in the previous month, and sometimes upcoming events. So if you want to find out about those, you can go to my website, existencefirst.com, and you'll see a little box there to sign up for the newsletter once a month. Second thing is Kyra and I love to get your feedback on the episodes and what topics you'd like to hear more about. So send us a message on Instagram. I'm always getting messages about the podcast saying, oh hey, this one episode was so helpful for me, and then I can dialogue with you, and it's very very valuable. So shoot me a message on Instagram. My handle is Existence First, and you can reach Kyra at
Soul designed future.
right. So we look forward to hearing from you and see you all in the next episode.